Okay, I want to look at an example here where we're asked to come up with the equation of the tangent to this function, y equals 6 sine x plus cos x at x equals pi over 2. So first thing we want to notice here is that we're given this x coordinate in radians. So we're going to need to calculate that y coordinate. So here's our function. So what we're going to do is we're going to substitute pi over 2 where we have the x values, the x variable. And a unit circle will come in handy here, so I've got one pulled up. So here's pi over 2. And one thing we want to remember is that when they give the coordinates, you can see here there's 0, 1 at pi over 2. That the first one is cos and the second one is sine. So sine I've got 1 and cos I have 0. So when I go down here, this right here, sine of pi over 2 we just saw is 1. So that's times 1. And this right here we just saw is 0. So this would just wipe out and this would be 0. So our y coordinate is going to be 6. So I'm just going to make a note of that here. It's going to be pi over 2 and 6. So the unit circle comes in very handy there. You can also make that calculation on your calculator. Personally, I think this circle will be the better way to go. And then it's exactly the same process. We're going to take the derivative of that function. So we got our trig there. So derivative of 6 sine x is going to be 6 cos x. And derivative of cos x is going to be minus sine x. So remember, we want to try and put in the form mx plus b because tangents are lines. So again, at this point here where we get our slope, we're going to substitute in that x coordinate, which would be pi over 2 that was given. So again, we can go back up to the circle. So here's pi over 2. Remember those from earlier, the coordinates are 0, 1. So cos is 0, so when we're doing this here, cos of pi over 2 we just saw is 0, minus sine of pi over 2, which we just saw was 1. So in this case here, we are going to get a slope of negative 1. And we can go here and start to make the line. Here was my point, so 6 for y. And that'll be minus pi over 2. When you balance for the y-intercept there, we're going to balance 6 pi over 2. So that would be the opposite. Now, if you wanted to, you could get a common denominator there. So I always go by it. If we need to do that, we will do that, but I don't mind just substituting that whole thing in there for b, just making sure we use brackets. So you can have that, or if you wanted to, if you did want to go for the common denominator, and of course that would be 12 over 2 plus pi. Now what I would do is I would not evaluate pi.